An intercompany crossover always feels special, even these days when they aren't as rare as they used to be. So imagine how exciting it must have been back in 1981 when heroes from Marvel and DC met for just the third time. These weren't just two of the most famous heroes on the printed page, they were the two most successful heroes on the small screen. Heroes from America's two big comic book publishers first met in 1976, when Superman squared off against Spider-Man in the Battle of the Century. It was a fair title, as those two characters were the brightest stars in the company's firmaments. But how do you follow up such an epic encounter 4 years later? Do it again, although this time there were guest appearances from a couple of other superhero superstars. Okay, so maybe the public want to see characters other than Spidey and Supes headlining. So who else has a big enough following to really make this an event? For DC, the choice was an easy one. Only one other character was big enough for the job. Batman debuted in 1939 in issue 27 of Detective Comics, was hugely popular, and quickly extended his appeal beyond the printed page, appearing in movie serials in the 1940s and animated TV series, with his fame peaking thanks to the 1960s TV show. Syndication and repeat airings of that show had kept his profile high into the 1980s, as did the fact that he featured in no fewer than 4 titles, including his own team-up title in The Brave and the Bold, and in World's Finest Comics, a monthly adventure with the Man of Steel. So DC's candidate was obvious, and Marvel's, well, that was pretty straightforward too. Despite the Hulk's original comic book series being cancelled after just 6 issues, he reappeared in Tales to Astonish a year or so later, and proved so popular second time round that the comic changed its name to The Incredible Hulk with issue 102 in 1968. Then the Hulk's status as an A-lister was cemented nearly 10 years later when a TV phenomenon hit our screens.
And now when David Banner grows angry or outraged, a startling metamorphosis occurs.
The Incredible Hulk was an international hit. The Green Goliath had burst free of the confines of the printed media, and in so doing had become a household name. Fans of the comic book may think that his catchphrases were Hulk smash and Hulk is strongest there is, but fans and even casual viewers of the TV programme knew that there was just one catchphrase.
Mr. McGee, don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
In the comics at that time, the Hulk was, I guess, the classic Hulk. Green, monosyllabic, and hanging out with Betty Ross and Rick Jones. As for Batman, well, being a DC character, I don't really know much about him. So let's find out by having a squint at Detective Comics issue 504. Wow. Well, I guess that's what you get when you start a series in 1937. This issue came out in 1981, the same year as our main feature today, and featured the Joker. Is there any other Batman villain? Gerry Conway was the writer. He had already spent a couple of years on this and the Batman title, and I know him well for all the work he did with Spider-Man, both before and after this stint with the Caped Crusader. As well as having more writing credits for Marvel and DC than you can shake a stick at, he also wrote numerous TV shows, including Diagnosis Murder. No way! I'm not as familiar with artist Don Newton, but then the majority of his work was for DC. This issue featured 2 tales, the second of which was, believe it or not, a solo adventure featuring Commissioner Gordon. As for the first one, here we go. Batman created by Bob Kane and Bill Finger. This first page does a good job in setting the scene. Not only the physical scene, that is Gotham at night time, but also the context for the story. In as much as we see this giant billboard where we're told that Arthur Reeves is running for mayor, and one of his big tickets is that he is anti-Batman because he is anti-vigilante, I guess. And here's something you don't see every day. Second person narration. Your city hasn't changed much in the months since you last walked its streets, but all things considered, Gotham City is much as you remembered it. It makes me feel like cracking out my fighting fantasy game books. And who is it that this narration is referring to? Well, I think it's the Joker. We get a little hint of a purple figure there, but no more than that. And even on the following page, there are silhouettes, again hints that it's the Joker, but we aren't shown or told explicitly that it's him. And what is the mystery figure doing? He is meeting up with a special toy maker who has made some special toys for him recently. The mystery man / Joker then kills the toy maker because he knows too much, before taking the last of the special toys. It may sound odd, but I'm beginning to think that maybe it isn't the Joker, because, I mean, he's on the front cover, so if it was him, why not just show him? Why hide him in shadow? That said, we are told that 1 hour later, the Gotham City Police Department attend, along with Commissioner Gordon and Batman. And the clues certainly point to it being the Joker, as the toy maker's body has a post-mortem grin and a Joker playing card left on his chest. Not only that, but Commissioner Gordon has called Arkham Asylum and they have confirmed that the Joker escaped 3 nights ago. Our investigators are then interrupted by the mayoral candidate himself, Arthur Reeves. He has brought his own news crew along and he wants to know why Batman is involved in a police investigation. Whilst Commissioner Gordon tries to deal with these interlopers, Batman spots a clue. He is a detective after all. It's a muddy footprint, but Arthur Reeves sees Batman taking a sample and he wants to know what he's playing at. Batman, however, is in no mood to talk and he takes his leave of the scene. The next morning, we join Bruce Wayne at the unveiling of a solid gold train set at the Dallas department store. It's not in Dallas, it's called Dallas. It's in Gotham City. Bruce is a shareholder in the department store and he, along with everybody else, marvels at the $3 million train set. At that point, he notices gas descending from the ceiling and everyone around him begins to laugh like maniacs. His words, not mine. And we know what happens next, don't we? As the lunatic harlequin of crime, the Joker, appears on the scene. So it is the Joker, and he's full of jokes as well, or puns anyway. First off, he says that the anaesthetic that he's spraying around is apparently a real gas. Then he says it's time to switch tracks and grab what he came for, which of course is the solid gold train set. Bruce Wayne was able to put some nose filters in his nostrils, and now he's on the scene as Batman. But the Joker says, "Don't rail at me, Batman, I'll lose my train of thought." Enough already! What's worse than the puns, only slightly though, is that the Joker escapes via a harness through a hole in the ceiling. Batman is too slow to catch him, but he does find another clue, the parachute that the Joker had been using. We catch up with Bruce later in the Batcave, which, as we all know, is under Wayne Building. Not Wayne Manor? What do I know about Batman? At this point, we get to see him doing some good detective work actually, and after all, he is the world's greatest detective. And he explains to Alfred, that is, he explains to us, what he's doing. First of all, he's running a chemical analysis on the sample of mud that was found at the scene of the toy maker's murder. He said it contains high levels of certain natural phosphors that are only found in 2 areas in Gotham City. He also noticed a peculiar odour on the parachute, although that could be because they're the Joker's underpants. But no, it is a parachute, and that odour relates to a part of the manufacturing of commercial ice cream. And checking the industrial index of Gotham City, basically their version of the Yellow Pages, he finds that there is indeed an ice cream factory in one of those 2 locations where the phosphors come from. That is where he will find the Joker. At that point, there's a news report about another very expensive toy being stolen, and Bruce says that the Joker is taunting him. He says those clues were left deliberately for him to find, and it's obvious why. It's a trap? At the ice cream factory, which is disused, aren't all the best villain hideouts, Batman sees a couple of guys carrying a box marked toys. It's the last connection he needs to prove that it's at the right location, and he quickly deals with the lackeys. Shortly after that, another goon comes out and sees the abandoned crate. Not knowing where his colleagues are, he and another gang member take it inside. Once inside, the crate opens and the Caped Crusader emerges. However, he's not alone. The Joker is there and is expecting him. It turns out it was a trap after all, and the Joker now has him exactly where he wants him, in his rumpus room, full of murderous toys, not least of which is a giant samurai Joker jack-in-a-box type thing. All of those other toys that had been made by the toy maker are there, and now they also attack Batman. We have exploding toy cars, biting teddy bears, and even one of those little musical monkeys with cymbals, although this musical monkey's cymbals are electrified. Mind you, they'd never last long, would they? Because it'd be like zzzt, zzzt, zzzt. Just be irritating more than anything. The Joker is so confident that his toys are going to kill Batman that of course he leaves them to it. Although he does hang around not too far away so he can listen out for clues of the Batman's demise. When all falls silent, he looks back in the rumpus room but is met with a surprise. A surprise in the face! It turns out that Batman made the other toys focus on the giant samurai toy, basically turning them all against each other. If it was that straightforward, you wonder how they could differentiate between the two in the first place. And the Joker? He is taken care of as Batman throws a batarang at one of the old pieces of equipment, and a large vat of ice cream is emptied onto the Clown Prince himself. The Joker is now trapped in the ice cream. Yes, that's right, trapped in the ice cream. And Batman wins. If it wasn't for that ice cream, it could have been a very different result. DC's Super Special Series was a fortnightly title launched in 1977 with an anthology issue featuring 5 different tales starring the likes of Batman and the Flash. It wasn't long, however, before it changed to a quarterly release schedule. It was similar to Marvel's Treasury Edition line, in that each issue focused on different characters. But unlike that series, it wasn't published exclusively in the oversized format. In fact, its format changed throughout its run. Usually they were standard dimensions, albeit some were thicker than others. A few of them were digest size, about the same as my notebook here. Don't look at that. Only the last 3 issues were oversized, including the 27th and final issue, Batman vs. the Incredible Hulk. It's a strange coincidence that the very last issue of this series was an intercompany crossover, just as the very last Marvel Treasury Edition had been the second Superman-Spider-Man team-up. It's a great cover by the book's penciler, Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. Born in Spain, Jose worked almost exclusively for DC Comics, producing only a handful of issues for the likes of Gold Key and Charlton. Although he didn't have a prolonged run on any particular title, his work was more widely seen than that of his more prolific colleagues, as he was responsible for the art on numerous DC licensed products. He was also responsible for the 1982 DC Comics Style Guide. This was an authoritative visual reference for other artists so they could see exactly how each character should look, including the official colouring schemes. It can be viewed in its entirety on the Jose Luis Garcia Lopez fans Facebook page. Coincidentally, the guy that inked those images also inked this, Dick Giordano. The writer was the legendary co-creator of Swamp Thing and Wolverine, the man who revived the fortunes of the X-Men, Len Wein, whose name some people stupidly pronounce as Wine. He had already written both characters in their own books, so he was a natural choice for the gig. As you can see, our villain is the Clown Prince of Crime. Why wouldn't it be? Actually, this was his first appearance since the ice cream business, although owing to the nature of the crossover, it probably exists outside of DC and Marvel's regular continuities. Now, let battle commence. On the inside front cover, we get some great origin stories. Not just the single paragraph that you normally get at the beginning of a comic, but proper little miniature stories, covering the origin of the Incredible Hulk, created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, and the origin of Batman, created by Bob Kane and Bill Finger. The first splash page as well is fantastic and would have been a worthy front cover, except for the figure in the background, but more on him later. We are in Gotham City on a hot summer's night that makes even sleep, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with the term moist effort. We focus on a few lives of Gotham City residents. One of them is trying to sleep in the heat, and he is dreaming of Arctic ice. But he stirs, and it seems his dreams have spilled into the real world. Elsewhere we catch up with a canoodling couple who are in the Rivoli Theatre, where a horror film is being played on the screen in front of them. Once again, reality warps, and before they know it, the imaginary world becomes all too real. A slight change of tack now as we head down to the dockside, where we meet up with the Joker. He is with a group of his lackeys, and he's talking to a figure that is shrouded in darkness. The Joker is working for this hidden figure, although at the moment we don't know to what end. As he and his gang walk away from their dockside meeting, he overhears one of them saying to the others that he thinks that the Joker is scared of this hidden figure. The Joker doesn't appreciate this lack of confidence, and he causes the lackey, whose name is Caine, to prick his finger on the poisoned thorn of a rose. After kicking Caine's body into the water, he stresses, the Joker never knows fear, the Joker simply is fear. Look at this splash page. We are at a busy Wayne research facility, and you can see everything going on there, from the radiation suits behind safety glass to the various tasks being carried out by no less than 17 different people, one of whom is Bruce Banner, working there under the assumed name of David Banks. He is working there in an effort to get close to the item that they are working on, which is an experimental gamma gun, something that he thinks could help cure him of his Incredible Hulk persona. Suddenly, though, he notices that everybody around him, including him, is beginning to laugh uncontrollably. Bruce has the foresight to try and clamber inside one of those radiation suits in the hope that it will protect him from whatever is causing this hysteria. And let's be honest, we all know what's causing this hysteria, don't we? And indeed, here he is. The Joker and his gang are there in an attempt to steal the gamma gun. No surprise there, I suppose. What is a little bit more surprising to us, the reader, is that Bruce Banner knows him. Inter-company continuity was interesting at this point. In later projects, such as Marvel vs. DC or the JLA Avengers series, all the heroes, the DC heroes and the Marvel heroes, yes, inhabited Earth, but they inhabited separate Earths in separate realities. And it would take some kind of cosmic event or threat for those realities to cross over, and that's when, for the first time, they met each other. At this stage, though, they hadn't come up with that plan. So all of the characters did inhabit the same planet Earth. And it was just down to the reader to suspend their disbelief that they'd never mentioned or met each other before. Although there is a nice little bit in the X-Men Teen Titans crossover when Cyborg comments on the fact that although both teams live and operate in New York, they'd never crossed paths before. Bruce's theory about the radiation suit protecting him is correct, and it enables him to sound the security alarm just before a couple of the Joker's guys wrestle him to the floor. And of course, that means trouble. The stress, the adrenaline rush, the anger from this tussle transforms Bruce into the Jade Giant. And the sorry, that picture just looks familiar somehow. I don't know. Anyway, no, wait a minute. I know where I've seen that before. There's an advert that ran in Marvel Comics a couple of years later, in 1983, for NBC Saturday mornings. It was basically a list of all the cartoons they had, including the fantastic Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. But it also included the Incredible Hulk cartoon. And this picture is the same as the one from the advert. And I don't mean similar to, or one was inspired by the other. It's the same, the exact same. Even the torn clothing is identical. It's only the colours that are different. So how odd that a Marvel cartoon was advertised using artwork by a DC artist taken from a DC publication. Because yes, this is a collaboration between the two companies, but undoubtedly it is published by DC Comics. It says here, it's DC Special Series number 27, published by DC Comics. How odd is that? Not only does Bruce Banner know who the Joker is, But the Joker is fully aware of who the Hulk is. He tells his men to shoot him, but even one of the lackeys knows that that isn't going to work. Of course, the Hulk has no awareness of the gamma gun. He just wants to smash. So, in the chaos, the Joker and his team grab the gun and escape. Well, they nearly escape. This really isn't their day, is it? Thanks to Banner sounding the alarm, Batman is there, and he causes the crooks to drop the gun, which of course is caught by the Hulk. The Joker now uses his nefarious charm to convince the Hulk that he is his friend and that Batman is his enemy. And he kindly holds the gun whilst the two of them fight. Now, superficially, especially on the eye, this is a good fight. But it's also a little bit irritating. We have some good dynamic panels before Batman tries to find a weak spot. Good luck. He does this by just punching him, the Hulk. Of course, that doesn't work, and we get a great picture of the Hulk trying to crush Batman. I can only assume that Wayne Industries has its own stock of adamantium that they've worked into the Batman suit. Is there a Wayne Industries? Probably. Batman then gets the upper hand by boxing Hulk's ears. We're told it didn't really hurt him, just startled him. It certainly looks like it hurt him, which is ridiculous. They do look good fighting each other. I think it's because visually they look so different. Although it does make me think, seeing a DC hero, how cloaks and capes must be impractical. Something that was kind of confirmed when Steve Rogers first became Nomad. After releasing some sleeping gas, Batman tries to force the Hulk to inhale it by kicking him in the stomach. Again, they try to point out that it's more startling rather than painful. But the fact is, it has enough force behind it to wind the Hulk, which is ridiculous. Again. It works though, and the Hulk inhales the sleeping gas and falls unconscious. The Joker, it seems, wanted to see that fight as much as we did, because he's waited around until now to try and make good his escape. Batman is confident though that he can catch the Joker and his gang because he knows the streets of Gotham so well. However, as he pursues them, the streets that he thought he knew intimately suddenly change and become like a maze. With the Joker, his gang and the gamma gun all gone, Batman changes back into his civilian identity to check out the damage in the lab. Of course, he's no fool, and he knows that the Hulk's human form is Bruce Banner. Banner offers to leave the lab, having caused all that trouble, but Bruce Wayne says no. Actually, I want you to lead the project to replace the gamma gun. Who else is better qualified? And they seal the deal with a really good looking handshake. The Joker has the gamma gun, we know that. Now we find out who the mysterious figure is on whose behalf he stole it. It's the Shaper of Worlds. I don't like him. He just looks too silly. He's a half Skrull, half tank giant. He looks like the winner of a designer villain competition. He has gone up against the Hulk a couple of times in the past, so I suppose he's a Hulk villain. But come on, what about the likes of the Leader or the Abomination? They would have made much better villains for this. Imagine the Joker and the Leader having a kind of battle of wits to see who comes out on top, who's in charge in that relationship. And imagine what the Joker could have done if he would have been able to manipulate a creature like the Abomination. But the Shaper of Worlds. The Shaper of Worlds' power is to be able to create things, anything, just from pure imagination. However, he himself doesn't really have an imagination, so he feeds off of the dreams of others. Recently, however, he was caught in the shockwaves of a supernova, and one of the after effects of that supernova seems to be that he has lost his ability to absorb the dreams of others. Thus, he came to Earth to find a cure. He reached out for a mind that would be able to help him, hence the earlier Arctic and horror movie scenes. And then he settled upon the mind of the Joker, and he knew this was a person that could help him. The Joker thought that the gamma gun would do the trick, but now, even as he is bombarding the Shaper with the gamma gun, it's clear that it isn't working. The Joker knows that if the Shaper isn't cured, he will go mad, and then the Joker fears that the whole universe will go mad, and he can't have everybody else being as mad as him. So he needs to come up with an alternative plan. Bruce Banner, or to give him his full name as they do here, Dr. Robert Bruce Banner, is now working on a floating laboratory owned by Wayne Enterprises. And he's in charge of the team that are reconstructing the Gamma Gun. Whilst that project continues, Batman is out trying to find information that will lead him to the Joker. Naturally, that leads him to beating up a gang of hoods, but he doesn't get the answers he's looking for. However, he does find a clue, a matchbook from the Black Swan Cafe. Later that evening at the Black Swan Cafe, which is a rough old joint and no mistake, we see a homeless bum asking the patrons for change when he overhears one of them that had worked for the Joker saying that he's been given the elbow because the Joker has finally hooked the big one and he doesn't need him anymore. That same rough doesn't appreciate being asked for change, and he gets the owner of the bar to kick the bum out. As some of you may have guessed, that was no bum. It was Batman in disguise. Although strangely he put his disguise over his cowl. Surely that's not the most efficient way of doing it. He says he's found out all he needs to know, which is odd because if he did, then it must have happened off panel, because all we've heard is that guy said the Joker has a big job. Big deal. Back on the floating laboratory, the US Air Force arrive. They are there to arrest Bruce. But after Alfred steps in and says this is private premises, one of the soldiers hits him and the apparent colonel says, "What are you doing? We're supposed to make this look like it's a proper military operation." Hearing this, Bruce gets worried, scared, angry. The fake military men don't stand a chance. Their leader has a taser rifle that he says could bring down King Kong. He quickly learns that the Hulk ain't King Kong. He can't believe how powerful the Hulk is. He says what we need is something bigger, tougher, stronger. The next thing you know, that is exactly what appears on the deck. Look at the size of him compared to the Hulk. He must be massive. He's strong too, because he easily swats the Hulk aside. The Hulk fights, of course. We are told how strong he is, that a blow he aims at the monster's midriff could demolish a skyscraper. But it's all ineffectual, because the beast is not only strong, but he has a strange dough-like substance to him. So any blows from the Hulk just sink into his body. In fact, the whole of the Hulk sinks inside his body and is soon trapped within him. The Hulk gets increasingly angry, but on this occasion, his anger, his strength don't help him. He is still trapped. And actually, he comes out with some very un-Hulk-like dialogue. As the soldiers gloat over him, he says, "You will pay for this, little men. Oh, how you will pay." Okay, so I'm hamming it up a little bit. But it really isn't the way that the Hulk talks. Len Wein should know better. Shortly after the pretend US Air Force helicopters leave the laboratory, the Gotham City Police Department arrive, as does Batman. And actually, we see a couple of the Hulk's supporting characters. Commissioner Gordon puts in a phone call to General Thunderbolt Ross about the military operation. And the General is quick to confirm that whoever those people were on the boat, they were not a part of the military. Doc Samson is there too, although sadly we don't see either of these characters again for the rest of this comic. I know who we are going to see though, because Batman says it doesn't take a Batman to work out who is behind those fake soldiers. It still makes me wonder what he learnt from being at the Black Swan Cafe. Back at the dockside with the Joker and the Shaper of the Worlds, we see that the Hulk is still trapped within that giant creature. A creature that was the creation of the Shaper of Worlds, as he used pretty much the last of his powers to form it from the thoughts of that fake army colonel. The Joker says that although the Hulk is thick, his alter ego, Bruce Banner, will be able to adjust the Gamma Gun and help the Shaper. But the Hulk doesn't like the idea of changing back into Banner, and this motivates him to finally escape his confinement. Then, as he approaches the Shaper, it seems that his gamma-irradiated body somehow helps to soothe the Shaper's pain. Taking advantage of the brief lull in action, the Hulk leaps away. But now the plan has changed. The Shaper is no longer interested in Bruce Banner's ability to help him with the gamma gun. He wants the Hulk, and it's going to be the Joker's job to find him. Later that night, Batman responds to the bat signal, only to find that it's the Joker that has flipped the switch. The Joker explains how the Hulk can ease the Shaper's pain and stop him from going mad, and he wants to work with Batman to find him. Batman agrees, although I'm not really sure why. I can see what benefit Batman is to the Joker in this situation, but what benefit would the Joker be? Nonetheless, the pair of them do search Gotham together for the Jade Giant. Eventually, they find him, taking on a couple of street muggers. Well, I say taking on, he could have made paste out of them, couldn't he? But Batman stops him. I like the fact that throughout this scene, Joker is just hiding behind Batman. Anyway, it isn't long before we get round 2 of the main event. The trick with the gas isn't going to work this time, and Batman finds himself being thrown around like a rag doll, and he thinks, how am I supposed to defeat him? And he had time to prep as well. Batman tries to reason with him, but the Hulk isn't known for his listening skills. That said, he is having difficulty finishing off Batman, so he says, sooner or later I'll smash you, even if I have to bring the whole building down to do it. And that's exactly what he does. As I suspected, the Joker was absolutely no use whatsoever in that battle. Anyway, Batman did survive, of course, and he soon crawls out of the rubble. Sometime later, the Hulk comes across a blind old man who talks to him, says, we don't need to fight, we can be friends, I'll be your friend. And the Hulk, for once, actually takes this on board and sits down and chats to the old man. In fact, he seems very calm. But he hasn't changed back to Bruce Banner. As the Hulk agrees that he should help puny humans, the Joker arrives and says, well, why don't you start with me? And as he wanders off with the Hulk, we see that the old man wasn't a blind old man at all. Again, it was Batman. And again, he had a face mask over his cowl. At this stage, can I just point something out? On the back cover, we have the Hulk and Batman squaring off against half a dozen of their enemies. That's pretty awesome. However, we are now on page 52 out of 64, and that just hasn't happened. Now, there's no prizes for guessing that it's about to happen, but even so, if I had bought this because of what I saw on the back cover, I think I'd feel pretty shortchanged when I saw the Shaper of Worlds. Speaking of, now that the Hulk's effect has worn off, the Shaper of Worlds is beginning to go a bit crazy again, and waves of creative energy are flooding across the dockside. Far from wanting the Hulk to help heal the Shaper, the Joker wants the Hulk to take the Shaper on, and he wants him to do it alone. Batman, however, says no, I'll go with him to give him a hand. Hold on, I thought Batman wanted the Hulk to stop fighting and to start being friends with people. What exactly was the plan here? The good news is that with the Hulk and Batman side by side and the Shaper throwing up his defences, we finally get to see that big battle promised on the back cover. We see the Rhino, Two-Face, the Abomination, Killer Moth. Killer Moth? Yeah, fine, because I can't think of any better known Batman villains, can you? The leader doesn't last long, and the Scarecrow is quick to follow, both shattering into tiny pieces. Killer Moth and Rhino take each other out before the last two are sent on their way. But the battle isn't over yet, because the Shaper is still there and he ain't happy. He's set up an impenetrable barrier of energy. Impenetrable? The Hulk likes a challenge like that. G'd up by Batman, suggesting that the barrier appears to be stronger than the Hulk says, no, nothing is stronger than Hulk. Hulk is the strongest there is. He clearly hasn't read the Superman-Spider-Man crossover. However, on this occasion, he's correct. The barrier is pierced. The Shaper is once more sane, and the Hulk reverts to his human form of Oh my God! Robert Bruce Banner, again. That's like the 4th time they've referred to him by his full name in this comic. And it is his full name. But how often is he referred to as Robert Bruce Banner in Marvel Comics? Very, very rarely. Bruce Banner. Everyone calls him Bruce Banner. In fact, in the TV series, his name was changed to David Banner because producers of the show felt that the name Bruce wasn't manly enough. Weird, huh? But again and again in this, Robert Bruce Banner. The Joker points out that he has maintained his end of the deal with the Shaper of Worlds. He has healed his pain, cured his madness. Now the Shaper has to uphold his end of the bargain. And that is to make the Joker's dreams come true. And first on the list is to be king of the world, before he then flies off to cause mischief throughout Gotham City. Batman, of course, goes after him. Bruce Banner gets angered by the Shaper's refusal to stop the Joker, and he turns into the Hulk once more. He then advances on the Shaper, but the Shaper, in the blink of an eye, sends him far away. Gotham City has been remade in the Joker's image, and even when Batman arrives to try to stop him, he too is turned into a clown. The Hulk, it seems, wasn't sent that far away after all, because he is also there, and he too is turned into a clown when he tries to deal with the Joker. Batman, of course, has a plan, and he chides the Joker on not being quite creative enough. He says that this is more of a rip-off of Alice in Wonderland, to which the Joker says, "Yeah, Alice in Wonderland," and changes their surroundings accordingly. Again and again he changes Gotham City based on the suggestions of Batman. We have a Salvador Dali-like landscape. We get to see what the Hulk and Batman would look like if Picasso drew them. But then when Batman challenges the Joker to prove that he can do absolutely anything, the strain of the thoughts going through the Joker's very own mind proves too much for him, and his mind snaps. Just to make sure, and because it's tradition, Batman punches him and knocks him out. The Shaper, satisfied that he has fulfilled his end of the bargain, now leaves Earth. The Joker still believes he is king of the world, but this is just a figment of his unhinged mind, as we see him safely back in Arkham Asylum. Commissioner Gordon is discussing with Batman what should be done about Bruce Banner when he realises that Banner is gone. He's about to send out an APB on him, but Batman says no, let him go. And we see him watch Bruce Banner walk away alone. Oh, come on, you'd have been disappointed if I hadn't used that. It's a decently written comic, notwithstanding those strange quirks regarding the Hulk and Dr. Banner. And the art is top-notch. Lopez was a great choice. His figures are perfectly proportioned, and the clean inks of Dick Giordano finished the job nicely. Overall, a very good effort, even though it was probably 10 pages too long. Marvel and DC would team up just once more in the 80s, before the plethora of crossovers in the mid-90s. A while ago, I asked you, the viewers, what crossover you wanted us to cover next, and the votes flooded in. Kind of. Now, I've already prepped for the Fantastic Four versus the X-Men, so I'm hoping that that's the one that you chose, but I have the results here, so let's have a look. In last place, with just 4% of the vote, were the crossovers between Spider-Man and Badrock and Backlash. I'm glad I didn't waste any time prepping for those. 25% of you wanted to see the Batman and Spawn crossovers. Over the years, there were 3 of these that were planned, although ultimately only 2 of them made it into print. I'm sure we'll have a look at them at some point in the future. Now, first and second place were separated by just 5% of the vote. So let's have a look. In second place, with 33%, it's Fantastic Four versus X-Men. So that means that the winner with 38% of the vote is